Hello students, welcome to the SRBPS virtual classroom program. I'm your biology educator, Ms. Prerna Rathi. So let us start today's class.
So students, let us start today's class. Today we will be dealing with human reproduction part 3, wherein we shall discuss the menstrual cycle in detail, fertilization and the process of implantation. Let us first start with menstrual cycle. What do you mean by a menstrual cycle? The rhythmic series of changes that occur in the reproductive organs of the female primates. What are primates? Monkeys, apes, human beings is known as menstrual cycle. This menstrual cycle, children, is repeated after an average interval of about 28 to 29 days, which is different from one individual to other individual. The first appearance of menstruation at puberty is known as menarche, and the last is known as menopause. The menstrual cycle, students, has been further divided into 4 phases, namely the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase and the luteal phase. Let us look at the schematic representation and discuss each of it one by one. So from here we are going to observe the 4 phases: menstrual, follicular, ovulatory and luteal, with respect to the level of the pituitary hormones, the events occurring in the ovary, the level of the ovarian hormones and the events occurring in the uterus. So 4 things we are going to study parallelly for each phase. Let us start with the menstrual phase. During the menstrual phase, the soft tissue of endometrial lining of the uterus disintegrates, causing bleeding in the female. The unfertilized egg and the soft tissue are discharged, and this phase lasts for about 3 to 5 days. During this phase, the level of ovarian hormones is low, and the follicular development in the ovarian follicle is about primary or up till secondary follicle only. The level of FSH is slightly high, but the level of LH is completely low. Next is the follicular phase, which is also known as the proliferative phase. During the proliferative phase, as you can see, the primary follicles in the ovary become fully mature Graafian follicle. You can see the development. The endometrium of the uterus here again starts regenerating due to the secretion of LH and FSH, luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone, which show clear peaks during this time. This phase lasts for about 10 to 14 days. Next phase is known as the ovulatory phase, which is very short lived. It lasts for only about 48 hours. Now, during this phase, as you can see, there is a very high peak of LH, luteinizing hormone. This phenomena is known as LH surge. This LH surge induces the rupture of the Graafian follicle and causes ovulation. During this phase, the secondary oocyte is released from the Graafian follicle, and what is left is known as corpus luteum. So, now begins the last phase of the menstrual cycle, which is known as the luteal phase, also known as the secretory phase. In this phase, the ruptured follicle changes into corpus luteum and begins to secrete a very important hormone called progesterone. As you can see, the peak of progesterone is there in the luteal phase. During this time, the endometrium thickens further and their glands secrete a fluid into the uterus. If the ovum is not fertilized, the corpus luteum degenerates and causes the degeneration of endometrium, leading to menstruation, that is back to phase 1. But in case the ovum gets fertilized, then the endometrium will remain as such and placenta formation will occur. This phase also continues only for about a day. During pregnancy, all the events of menstrual cycle stop and there is no menstruation. The menstrual cycle permanently stops around the age of 50 years, and this phenomena is known as menopause. I hope everybody has understood. Let us now discuss the phenomena of fertilization. As we have already seen during the last chapter, fertilization is the process of fusion of male and female gamete in order to form a diploid zygote. What happens after the insemination, that is after copulation, when the sperms are released into the vagina, the motile sperms swim rapidly through the cervix, enter into the uterus and reach the ampullary isthmic junction, which is the site of fertilization. As you can see in the diagram, various sperms hit the corona radiata. Then, after digesting the corona radiata, they reach the zona pellucida. The enzymes present in the acrosome, that is the hydrolytic enzymes, slowly digest the corona radiata and then the zona pellucida, cross the previtelline space and release their nucleus into the ovum. Right now, one more change occurs, as we've already studied. Second polar body is released during this time, and the fusion of ovum and the sperm leads to formation of a diploid zygote. Let us now see what will happen after the formation of zygote. After the formation of zygote, this zygote will develop further and convert into blastocyst, which shall get embedded into the endometrium of the uterus, and this process is known as implantation. So what happens? The zygote divides rapidly by simple mitotic divisions when it moves through the ampullary isthmic junctions towards the isthmus and then towards the uterus. This is known as cleavage. First, it makes a 2-cell stage, then a 4-cell stage, then a 8-cell stage, then 16-cell stage, where each cell is known as a blastomere. The embryo, which has about 8 to 16 blastomeres, is known as a morula. This morula develops a cavity and is known as a blastocyst. The blastomeres in the blastocyst are properly arranged. They form an outer layer called the trophoblast and an inner cell mass, which will further develop into the fetus. This trophoblast, the outer membrane, that it gets embedded into the endometrium, and this attachment is known as implantation. After the implantation, further the trophoblast and the endometrial lining will lead to the formation of placenta. As you can see in this diagram, there was an ovum, then the fertilization occurred from a zygote, then 2-cell stage, 4-cell stage, then various blastomeres are developing, morula is formed. Then there is a cavity that is formed called blastocele, which is formed inside the morula, which makes it convert into blastocyst, which has an outer membrane called the trophoblast and an inner cell mass. So hence this blastocyst gets embedded in the uterine wall, that is endometrium, and further leads to the formation of placenta. So let us recapitulate quickly what we have learnt in this class. We have learnt about menstrual cycle, how it occurs in a period of about 28 to 29 days, and what are the different phases of menstrual cycle. Then we discuss fertilization, which is nothing but the fusion of male and female gamete in order to form a diploid zygote. Then we studied about implantation, which is the embedding or fixing of an embryo into the endometrial lining.
I hope you understood today's lecture and are making full use of our YouTube channel. So until next time, goodbye, take care.